We will be starting the webinar shortly as soon as all our attendees get populated into the program. Welcome everyone to the Department of Justice webinar, Office of Justice Programs webinar on the tribal funding background. My name is Richard Love and I'll be your moderator for today. But before we begin the actual presentation, there's just a few things I need to go over with our attendees here. Now, our attendees, please note that you are muted during this presentation. We ask that you please do not raise your hand for questions as we cannot unmute you. If you would like to ask a question, we ask that you please use the question section box, which is going to be on the right side of your screen. You can type your question in. Once your question is typed in, your question will be answered at the end of the webinar. It will be presented to either the presenters or our panelists from the Department of Justice who will then answer your question. This webinar is also being recorded and will be available for review. With that, it is my pleasure to give you today your subject matter experts from the Department of Justice. Starting it out will be our first team, Mary and Tracy. It is all yours.
Good afternoon. I want to welcome everyone to this webinar and thank you so much for your participation. My name is Mary Thomas and I'm the Director of Policy in the Office of the Assistant Attorney General in the Office of Justice Programs. Our goal today is to continue a discussion we began last October when we sought feedback from tribal leaders and professionals on how to make Justice Department funding more accessible to tribes and more responsive to tribal needs. The comments that many of you provided during that listening session and in a subsequent session were helpful and are shaping concern about the burdens of the grant process on smaller tribes. You let us know your desire for resources that support tribal law enforcement, and you raised additional questions about a host of other issues that we would like your help in answering. We've collected your input and questions and have created a framing paper that summarizes the issues. We'd like to use this paper to organize the conversation that will take place at our consultation at the National Congress of American Indians winter meeting next week. We are particularly interested in your ideas of how we can effectively administer the proposed up to 7% tribal set-aside included in the President's budget for the Office of Justice Programs. As I'm sure you realize, the set-aside would make more money available to tribes and offer broader flexibility in how those funds are used. Our hope is that we can get more resources into the hands of tribal leaders and professionals so that you can tackle the public safety challenges that you face every day. You know best what obstacles you face and what the best methods are to help your communities tackle these challenges. We know that in many ways, these challenges mirror those in communities across America, whether it's violent crime, gang activity, drugs, or the dangers encountered by law enforcement officers on a daily basis. The Trump administration and this Department of Justice are strongly committed to meeting all of these challenges. As part of the Attorney General's Task Force on Crime Reduction and Public Safety, we're working with jurisdictions to develop sustainable, evidence-based anti-violence strategies. The department is also going after violent gangs, and OJP is dedicating resources to preventing gang involvement. We invested almost $59 million in fiscal year 2017 to combat the opioid epidemic. In collaboration with the Office on Violence Against Women, we're meeting the needs of crime victims, including Native women and children. And in partnership with the department's COPS office, we're working hard to keep tribal, local, and state law enforcement officers safe. We want to make sure that our resources are helping tribal public safety officials meet these challenges too, because we know that often tribes feel the weight of these challenges in even greater measure. The Department of Justice is here to lend its support. We need your input to make sure our resources are meeting your needs. As you hear from the presenters today, I encourage you to think creatively about how we can better serve you, and let us know what actions we can take to better leverage our funding and help you advance your community's public safety goals. I'll now turn it over to my colleague, Tracy Tulu, Director of the Department's Office of Tribal Justice.
TJ, are you ready? Are you on mute?
Hi. Hello, everyone. This is Tracy Tulu. Thank you, Mary, for the introduction. I'm the Director of the Office of Tribal Justice. I want to thank you all for participating with us today. It's very important for us to have the input of our tribal partners as we try to work through this issue of making our grant programs better and more responsive to Indian country. I'm going to take a couple minutes to talk through the purpose of this webinar and do a quick overview before we get in of the agenda before we get into the actual program. The purpose of this webinar is it's not a consultation in that we are not seeking input on the framing paper that everybody should have seen, and if not, it's available. But it's more to explain what goes into our grant making programs, and we understand that these are complex programs, and we want to make sure that the people who are talking, either you or tribal leaders you're advising, when we get to the actual consultation, have a good idea how these programs work as possible, because we do really want to do a good job of administering them. So that's the purpose of this webinar, is to provide that background information. I'm going to quickly run through the agenda so you know what's coming over this next hour and a half. We're going to have the first session of speakers is an overview of the scope of the legislative parameters of the up to 7% set aside. So we are looking at taking the funds that we have had in individual program areas, which have been allocated by Congress, and instead of using them in individual areas, allocating them across the board on Indian country programs. Mickey Atsat and Emily Gallus are going to talk about that, the legislative proposal, and how that's laid out for us to consider today. After that, Eileen Gary is going to talk about the CTAS program and the approach and how we've developed that. And CTAS, for those of you who haven't dealt with it, is the Coordinated Tribal Application System. That's a system we've worked on up until now. We've had put a lot of time in working through it, and we want to get the benefits of your thoughts on that program eventually in the consultation, and how with the broader 7% set aside we might be able to do better. So Eileen Gary is going to talk about that historic CTAS system. Then the funding that we have received historically for the last 20 years or so have been in different program areas. That limitation is being lifted in the 7% set aside, but it's important to know what areas Congress has provided us funding in, and we have Betsy Griffith, Jim Antel, Matt Lysankowski, and Don Duran are going to have slides, and we'll talk through how those programs have worked in the past. And then finally, we think it's important to keep track of what we're doing and get information as we go forward in our programs so we can continue to improve them as need be. So we're going to have Jerry Mulrow and Howard Spivak talk about gathering information and our resource efforts in Indian country, and what we can expect going forward on that. And then for the last 30 minutes, Betsy Griffiths, who's here with me, will be taking questions based on the information that's been provided to you. I want to remind everybody that this is we're doing this to get ready for at least the first consultation, which is at NCAI here in Washington, which is the 15th of February. So again, this is background information. We look forward to hearing your questions and providing hopefully some useful information. Thank you. And so I will turn the mic over to Mickey Yatsat and Emily Gallus.
Thank you, Tracy. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Nikki Yatsat, and I'm Deputy CFO, Chief Financial Officer here at OJP. And I'm going to talk for a second about the up to 7% tribal set-aside enacted in fiscal year 2017 and requested in 2018. Next slide, please. First off, we were very excited when in fiscal year 2017, Congress appropriated for the very first time the 7% tribal set-aside. We've been requesting it since fiscal year 2011, and while we haven't given up hope, we were very excited when the funds were appropriated as a 7% set-aside. In doing so, Congress excluded certain programs from the set-aside, such as JAG and SCAP. Next slide, please. The fiscal year 2018 President's budget also requested the set-aside for criminal and juvenile justice assistance. And this time there were fewer exclusions than enacted in fiscal year 2017. There was one notable. It was Public Safety Officer Benefits Program. The discretionary funds were excluded from the calculation. But for the most part, it's an across-the-board set-aside. Use for these funds is not prescribed. It's designed to be flexible. And Emily Gallus will touch more on that in a moment. Next slide, please. Programs traditionally funded as a separate appropriation line item are not included anymore in the appropriation. By appropriating a set-aside from overall agency funding, there was no need to create the separate line items anymore, which did restrict the use of those funds. But of course, tribes may also apply for most grant programs that are not tribal specific within OJP. Next slide. This table shows the sources and amounts of the 7% set-aside funding in fiscal year 2017 as enacted and fiscal year 2018 as requested. It also shows the congressional marks for fiscal year 2018. And as you see, the funding ranges from, in fiscal year 2017 enacted, $66.2 million, to the Senate mark, which includes a total of $110.8 million. Next slide. This pie chart shows how the $66.2 million 7% set-aside funds were used in fiscal year 2017. The yellow slice is CTAS Purpose Area 1, and that is community policing. And it is the biggest slice. The second largest slice is the pink slice, which is for Purpose Area 3, and it's justice systems and alcohol and substance abuse. These programs will be discussed later in this webinar. And now I'll turn it over to Emily Gallus, and she'll talk a bit more about the flexibility.
Thanks, Nikki. This is Emily Gallus with the General Counsel's Office, and I will expand just briefly on the scope of the 7% set-aside. Often, DOJ receives appropriated funds that are tied to a specific statute with extensive legislative requirements. That is not the case with the up to 7% set-aside in the President's budget. As Mickey mentioned, this funding stream is much more flexible. We expect this funding to be limited generally to programs and activities related to tribal criminal and juvenile justice systems. So it could be used to fund existing tribal-specific DOJ programs, and my colleagues will provide a lot more information on those programs during this webinar. Or the up to 7% set aside could instead be directed to different priorities in the tribal criminal or juvenile justice system. So we expect that there will be a lot of flexibility in the topic area of funded activities. We also expect flexibility in the way funds are distributed. The funding could be distributed through competitive solicitations, or it could support formula grants through which funding would be allocated to tribes based on something like crime statistics or population. The funding could also support training and technical assistance or programs like the TAP program, which you'll hear more about during this webinar. The bottom line is that we expect that there will be a good deal of flexibility in how to fund tribal-specific criminal and juvenile justice programs with the up to 7% set aside. And with that, I will turn it over to Eileen.
Great, good afternoon. My name is Eileen Gary. I am the CTAS coordinator at the Department of Justice. I want to talk to you briefly this afternoon about our coordinated tribal assistance solicitation approach. DOJ is committed to a sustained partnership with tribal governments to improve justice and public safety in tribal communities. This program has been up and running since 2010. In an effort to build on the success of CTAS, the department does ask tribes how to further refine and improve our solicitation through an online assessment tool, consultation sessions, listening sessions, focus groups, and webinars like we're having today. Many of these responses and suggestions are incorporated into the next CTAS solicitation, which we hope to become more and more user-friendly. From 2010 through 2017, approximately 539 applications were submitted each year for funding. DOJ has made over 1,866 awards, totaling over $827 million since CTAS was launched in 2010. We received 522 applications in fiscal year 2017, funding requests approaching $248 million. And as you can see, we supported an estimated $101 million in grants. Next one. Although CTAS provides one combined solicitation for all of the purpose areas, the DOJ program officers that administer the grants are the Community-Oriented Policing Services Office, the Bureau of Justice Assistance, the Office for Victims of Crime, the Office on Violence Against Women, and the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. It's important to remember that the programs and requirements are the same. The only difference is in the application process. These are not DOJ budget or program priorities. These are the statutes that authorize the funds for which the tribes and their authorized designees are eligible. A description of the bureaus and offices that administer the grants and the statutes attached to a purpose area can be found on our website at www.justice.gov/tribal. Next slide. Under CTAS, the Department of Justice provides funding for 9 different purpose areas, which are highlighted on the screen. These purpose areas are DOJ's tribal government-specific competitive grant programs. Applicants may select the purpose areas that best address their tribe's concerns. As I mentioned previously, grant funding under these purpose areas are related to public safety, criminal and juvenile justice, and the needs of victims and survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, and other forms of violence. DOJ has incorporated feedback from tribal meetings, consultations, and the assessment tool and made the following changes to the CTAS program for fiscal year 2018. Question and answer templates have been further coordinated and refined across each purpose area to ensure more clarity and to reduce duplication. The strategic planning program template has been updated for clarity, and project abstracts for each purpose area are now required. The demographic form as it relates to Purpose Area 1 for the COPS office and its submission requirements have been updated. The demographic form applies only to applicants applying for Purpose Area 1. Finally, the budget sheets were redesigned to be more user-friendly and to reflect software updates. You'll hear later in the day about the updates to Purpose Area 4, the Tribal Justice Systems Infrastructure Program. In fiscal year 18, applicants must now certify the extent of planning completed and present all relevant documents related to the completed planning activities with their application. And the scope of allowable funding options under this purpose area has been expanded to include using funds to build prefabricated or permanent modular facilities. For the Office of Violence Against Women, Purpose Area 5, Tribal Governments Program, remove the restriction that no more than 50% of the budget for Purpose Area 5 can go to services for youth and services for children exposed to violence. Change in fiscal year 2018 for the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention in the area of juvenile tribal healing, the wellness courts. The eligibility criteria now reflects that federally recognized tribes that have received OJJDP funding through the 2014 Tribal Healing the Wellness Court Responses to Underage Drinking Initiative, or the fiscal year 2015, 16, or fiscal year 17 CTAS Purpose Area number 8 are not eligible to apply for funds in this purpose area. Finally, Purpose Area 9, Tribal Youth Program. Any active Purpose Area number 9 awardee that has a period of performance end date on or after June 30th, 2019 at the time of application are not eligible to apply for funds. And the maximum award amount has changed from $350,000 to $400,000 for a 4-year program period. You're going to hear now from each of the offices about more detailed information around each of the purpose areas.
Thank you, Eileen. This is Betsy Griffith with the Bureau of Justice Assistance. And before I head into this panel on the areas where the specific agencies have been historically spending funds, I did want to share with you that if you look in the framing paper, Appendix A, you can see specific information that breaks out by agency, how resources have been spent in recent years and are to be proposed. One of the things we wanted to note for you is that we are, with regard to that chart, you will not see the funding that is listed for the Office for Victims of Crime. That funding is actually taken out of the Crime Victims Fund and is not included in these documents. So we just wanted to make sure you were aware that those numbers were not included with the information that's been provided. The Bureau of Justice Assistance oversees activities as it relates to the adult criminal justice system, including tribal justice systems. We oversee grant activities, as well as training and technical assistance for tribal justice systems. And in our CTAS solicitation, BJA oversees Purpose Area 2, 3, and 4, and I'll go into some detail about that in a moment. We also oversee the Tribal Civil and Criminal Legal Assistance Program that provides services to folks, tribal members, and tribes that are indigent, found to be indigent by the federal guidelines. As has been mentioned before, BJA has utilized prior consultations and feedback from tribal leader to inform priorities as well as approach attempting to make our purpose areas as flexible and responsive to the feedback that we have received. As mentioned before, we do oversee 3 purpose areas. Purpose Area 2 is something that we manage jointly with our colleagues across the department, supporting comprehensive tribal justice strategic planning in partnership with tribes that are selected, working with a technical assistance provider. Purpose Area 3 is our justice systems, adult justice systems funding, which includes resources for prevention and alcohol and substance abuse reduction. And finally, our Purpose Area 4 activities support tribal justice infrastructure relating to the physical plant of tribal justice buildings. As I mentioned before, Purpose Area 2 is really where we across the department support you as tribal leaders in engaging in comprehensive justice system-wide strategic planning to really look at the connections between tribal justice, community wellness, and public safety. And the grant supports personnel to support your work, working with our national training and technical assistance provider, as well as office equipment and other travel-related costs. And the way we have set it up in recent years is that once a strategic plan is developed by a Purpose Area 2 grantee, and then is submitted and approved by our colleagues across the department, then you as a tribe would be eligible for priority consideration in the next CTAS application process that would give you some priority in funding decisions. Our Purpose Area 3, as I mentioned, is our broad category to try and address the range of issues that you may be facing in your tribal justice system, both relating to tribal courts and corrections, but also relating to crime associated with substance abuse and alcohol issues. Again, it's very broad. We have some specific areas, in part informed by that feedback we've received in the past, to focus on diversion activities, to focus on tribal courts activities, focusing on young adults 18 to 25, as well as to support other activities that have been identified. But certainly it is very broad, and tribes can apply for the issues that are most important for them. And then in Purpose Area 4, we're very much focused on supporting you in renovating buildings to help you be able to have the physical infrastructure to provide those tribal justice services. Based on feedback, we have in recent years shifted the focus from just the construction of tribal jails to other types of tribal justice facilities, including correctional alternatives, multi-purpose justice centers, and transitional living facilities. And the uses at this time are focused on renovation or expansion of correctional or correctional alternative facilities, as well as related costs. The operational costs are things that would be covered more under Purpose Area 3, so this is the building piece of it. And there does have to be a nexus for the facility being renovated. It has to be tied to criminal justice. One thing that folks should be aware of is that there is a planning process and a certification requirement around that process. In addition, we have clarified that using funds to build prefabricated or permanent modular facilities are allowable activities or uses for the funds. And then finally, as I mentioned before, BJ also oversees another program that is not part of the CTAS solicitation. Traditionally, the authority for this program limited funding to 501c3 nonprofit organizations. So we have managed this program outside of CTAS, but it does support tribes being able to enhance their systems through improved access of tribal members to tribal justice systems, as well as support for tribes that also are found to be within the federal poverty guidelines. So we have, through this program, also supported the development of tribal codes, policies, and procedures, as well as to support the provision of direct service for both civil and criminal legal assistance. And finally, we have a range of training and technical assistance that we provide to the field. I, on this slide, provide a quick summary of that, but I think what we want to emphasize is that our training and technical assistance is available at no cost to grantees and other federally recognized tribes. So you do not have to be a grantee to access our resources. And with that, I will turn it over to Jim Antal from OJJDP.
Thanks, Betsy. Hello, everyone. This is Jim Antal. I'm an associate administrator within the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, or OJJDP. I'd like to just share the mission statement for OJJDP, where we provide national leadership, coordination, and resources to prevent and respond to juvenile delinquency and victimization. we support states and communities in their efforts to develop and implement effective and coordinated prevention and intervention programs and to improve the juvenile justice system so that it protects public safety, holds youth appropriately accountable, and provides treatment and rehabilitative services tailored to the needs of juveniles and their families. So OJJDP has basically historically had one primary funding stream to support programs for tribes, and that's the Tribal Youth Program. And we've used that program over time predominantly through the Coordinated Tribal Assistance Solicitation. So these funds can support tribes in enhancing their efforts to prevent and reduce juvenile delinquency, as well as strengthening their juvenile justice systems. Beyond the programs, we also have used those fundings to support training and technical assistance. In the past, we have had a few opportunities to use and direct other non-tribal specific funding streams to help support programs within Indian country. Those included the Enforcing Underage Drinking Laws Program, Juvenile Accountability Block Grant Program, and drug courts. So I guess Jeannie or Betsy, you were good. You can go back one slide. Nope. Go back one more. There we go. Okay. So the first one, the first funding, as I said, the Tribal Youth Program funding stream is a part of CTAS. It's Purpose Area 9, and the guidance within that solicitation is to allow for tribes to basically use the funds to support services along the continuum. So from prevention to intervention or treatment. Many of the applications that we fund are supporting programs such as mentoring, prevention programs such as mentoring, truancy reduction programs, after-school programs, and anti-bullying programs, all of which oftentimes include a cultural components that are specific to each tribe. Some of the intervention programs that are supported are diversion programs to prevent youth from going further into the system and being detained or placed away from their home. And then treatment services are also something that can be supported through the Tribal Youth Program. So that's mental health and substance abuse treatment. So next slide. As I said, we have used other funding streams beyond the Tribal Youth Program funding stream. And this is an example where we've been able to use drug court funds to support the development of juvenile healing to wellness courts. So this would be Purpose Area 8 within CTAS. And as Eileen had mentioned earlier on, we've continued to hone this particular purpose area to focus more and more on the development of new juvenile healing to wellness courts to support those tribes that are interested in starting a court from the very beginning based on the principles of healing to wellness. So that's Purpose Area 8. And the goal here, obviously, is to support those tribes interested in developing new courts, and funding can support personnel, the treatment services connected to the courts, and other support services that youth might need. Next slide. We've been fortunate beyond CTAS to use some of the Tribal Youth Program fundings also to support youth leadership activities. OJJDP has a history of supporting a number of successful tribal youth summits. And what we learned was those one-off events didn't necessarily translate into continued action or support of leaders, youth leaders across Indian country, which was really the goal. So we have developed an initiative where and we've moved from a singular event to a regional approach across the country, where we have regional events bringing youth and young adults together and focusing on continuing to build youth leadership skills. Next slide. This is another example of funding that is not necessarily tribal specific, but that we've used to, again, support needs within Indian country. So this is our Missing and Exploited Children program area, where we have, as a part of Amber Alert in Indian country, we've used our training and technical assistance provider to train law enforcement on investigating and responding to missing and abducted children, as well as technical assistance to help support and bridge the work between tribes and states in expanding the Amber Alert network. All right, next slide. And finally, in addition to these programs, OJJDP also supports 2 training and technical assistance providers, one in the lower 48, which is our OJJDP Tribal Youth Training and Technical Assistance Center, operated out of the University of Oklahoma under the leadership of Dr. D. Bigfoot, where we're able to provide a number of webinars or site-based training, all at no cost, as Betsy had mentioned earlier. We also, the center also supports all of our CTAS grantees by helping walk them through a strategic planning process to ensure that their grant-funded program is a success. And secondly, we recognize at OJJDP that the Alaska Native villages require targeted assistance that is specific to their needs. And so we have funded the Rural Alaskan Community Action Program, or Rural CAP, to support training and technical assistance specific to Alaska Native villages. Again, that's not just grantees through CTAS, but also any Alaska Native village. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. My name is Matt Lizakowski, and I'm the Senior Advisor for Tribal Affairs for the Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services, or COPS office. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you today for a few minutes about COPS's tribal funding. I will provide you with a brief overview of our tribal program here at the COPS office. COPS's tribal efforts center around our Tribal Resources Grant Program, which is our tribal-specific funding stream and is part of the DOJ's Coordinated Tribal Assistance Solicitation that Eileen described a few minutes ago. COPS is proud to have partnered with our other DOJ components on CTAS since it launched in 2010. The Tribal Resources Grant Program funds the hiring of law enforcement officers, as well as much-needed equipment and training costs for tribal law enforcement agencies. Typical projects may support sworn law enforcement officers, civilian anti-methamphetamine coordinators, uniforms and basic issue equipment, police vehicles, communications and record systems, computers, training, and other items. An example of how prior consultations and listening sessions have informed the program, for fiscal year 2018, COPS is allowing overtime costs for sworn officers for the first time under the Tribal Resources Grant Program. We look forward to receiving additional feedback through the consultation next week, as well as other sessions to help us improve COPS's tribal program. Next slide, please. Tribal Resources Grant Program funding has fluctuated over time, and here you can see the last several years' appropriation levels for the program, including the 7% set aside in fiscal year 2017. Our fiscal year 2018 budget has not yet been finalized. However, the President's budget proposed $30 million in a separate line item for the Tribal Resources Grant Program, while the House and Senate appropriation markups proposed approximately $16 million via the 7% set aside. Next slide, please. In addition to direct grants to tribes through the Tribal Resources Grant Program, COPS has also supported tribes through numerous training and technical assistance efforts through the years. Some of the partners we've worked with to provide community policing and other law enforcement related training include Fox Valley, Western Community Policing Institute, Lamar Associates, and others as seen here. Through on-site trainings, forums, conferences, and specialized technical assistance, these providers deliver law enforcement related training to both grantees and other federally recognized tribes as requested. Next slide, please. Finally, COPS has also supported the development and distribution of several publications and resources to further tribal community policing efforts. These resources have included promising practice guidebooks on tribal community policing and addressing methamphetamines in Indian country. These publications highlight successful efforts at specific tribes so that other tribes may benefit from these successes. COPS has also produced a flash drive that contains all our tribal-specific publications, in addition to other DOJ-related publications and tribal resources. Next slide, please. Before I turn it over to the SMART office, I'd also like to mention that COPS has supported the Tribal Access Program, including funding a precursor to the effort in 2010 to provide tribal law enforcement agencies access to the National Crime Information Center database, as well as supporting the expansion of TAP in 2016. TAP can be invaluable to tribes that are having difficulty accessing critical criminal justice information systems, and COPS supports the maintenance and expansion of the program that the SMART office will talk more about. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dawn Duran from the SMART office.
Thank you, Matt. As Matt said, I am Dawn Duran. I'm the Deputy Director of the SMART office, and we just wanted to very quickly talk to you a little bit about our funding streams. We have the Adam Walsh Implementation Grant Funding, and that supports SORNA implementation efforts and activities for all of the SORNA jurisdictions, which are the states, the tribes, and the territories, up to $20 million. We also have the National Sex Offender Public Website Funding, and that supports the National Sex Offender Public Website, the SORNA Exchange Portal, the Tribe and Territory Sex Offender Registry System, and some related activities to the Tribal Access Program, and that's up to $1 million. Neither of these funding streams are a part of CTAS, and that's because they are open to all SORNA jurisdictions, which, as I stated previously, includes the states and the territories. However, with the flexibility that Mickey and Emily mentioned earlier, we have been able to provide support to a very important program, and that's the Tribal Access Program that Matt was previously speaking about. And thank you. That is the Tribal Access Program. It has been funded solely by SMART in the beginning, and you can see in FY 2015 at $1 million, and it was initially limited just to SORNA tribes. And then COPS and SMART each funded $1 million in fiscal year 2016, and the 7% set aside in FY 2017 funded $3 million. That funds and supports startup costs as well as ongoing maintenance costs. And currently we are funding 47 tribes, and over 170 agencies are supported by this, including police departments, criminal courts, civil courts, departments of corrections, Office of the Prosecutors, Office of Probation, Child Protection Services, Human Resources, and Public Housing. And finally, the next and last slide that we have shows you the full expanse of the tribes that have been funded through both the SMART office and the COPS office and the 7% set-aside funding. And at this time, I will turn it over to my colleagues from, I believe, NIJ and BJS.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Jerry Mulrow. I'm the Principal Deputy Director for the Bureau of Justice Statistics here at the Office of Justice Programs. The Bureau of Justice Statistics is charged with improving data, data collection, analysis, and dissemination of criminal justice data. I just did want to mention two grant opportunities that we have towards improving data. These grant opportunities are not part of CTAS, but federally recognized tribes are eligible to apply for this fund. This is the first one is the National Criminal History Improvement Program. This program provides support for improving the accuracy, utility, and accessibility at the national level of criminal history records and enhancing records of protective orders and automated identification systems supporting name and fingerprint-based background checks. The other grant opportunity, next slide please, that BJS has for tribes. Next slide please. Is the NICS Act Record Improvement Program, or as we call it, NARIP. This program is also aimed at improving criminal history records that are used for background and firearm checks. And again, federally recognized tribes may apply to this grant program. Then I just wanted to mention briefly, next slide please. I just wanted to mention a couple of data collection activities that BJS has in development. BJS is mandated to collect data on tribal justice, and we have a couple of different data collections that we're in the development of now, which tribes may have heard of. The first is our Census of Tribal Law Enforcement Agencies. We will be this spring talking to some selected tribal law enforcement agencies to help us finalize this survey. And then we plan to be in the field with this towards the end of 2019, collecting data on 2018. We have also been developing a survey of state and local prosecutor offices that serve tribal lands and a survey of state and local law enforcement agencies that serve tribal lands. So trying to collect data to help better inform what's going on tribal lands. I'll now turn it over to my colleague at NIJ, Howard Spivak.
Hi, my name is Howard Spivak. I'm the Principal Deputy Director at the National Institute of Justice. As the Research Development and Evaluation Agency of the U.S. Department of Justice, NIJ is dedicated to improving knowledge and understanding of crime and justice issues through science. NIJ supports research in criminal justice and is comprised of 3 science offices: social and behavioral science, investigative and forensic sciences, and technology development, testing, and evaluation. NIJ directs its efforts towards building a body of cumulative knowledge that will assist the criminal justice field in its effort to prevent and control crime and improve the criminal justice system. Also sponsor research that will improve and upgrade current scientific methods used to study crime and support new areas that have been neglected in the past. NIJ has several programs that support and cultivate a pool of researchers involved in criminal justice research, as well as activities to support the research endeavor itself. Since its establishment, NIJ has had a significant federal role in assisting state, tribal, and local officials. Few major initiatives in the criminal justice system during the past 50 years have occurred without significant involvement of research developed and sponsored by NIJ. NIJ's Tribal Crime and Justice Research Program strives to provide accurate, comprehensive, and current information on the incidence, prevalence, and nature of crime and victimization in Indian country and Alaska Native villages. We endeavored to identify barriers to and possible solutions to dealing with significant public safety issues in tribal communities, improve our understanding of the programmatic, service, and policy needs of Native people and communities, understand victims' experiences with and opinions of services they receive from justice authorities, as well as their reasons for not seeking those services. And in turn, our understanding can help to educate and inform policymakers, the public, and threats to safety, health, and the well-being of American Indian and Alaskan Native people. NIJ has worked successfully with tribal communities since 1993 by ensuring collaboration and transparency through full partnerships that involve local buy-in and coordination. One of the first studies funded by the department had to do with the Oliphant case. And as you know, Oliphant refers to the court case that changed the face of Indian country jurisdictions. The NIJ commissioned a study to look at the legal and policy implications and how it would impact tribal justice systems. Another high-profile project funded by NIJ was the Comprehensive Indian Resources for Community and Law Enforcement Project, or CIRCLE. CIRCLE was a 3-year collaborative funding initiative that provided $46.4 million in grants between federal fiscal years 1999 and 2001. The goal was to reduce crime and improve safety in Native communities by making tribal criminal justice systems stronger. More recently, NIJ's Violence Against Indian Women program of research has been supporting research and evaluation studies that are expected to produce a deeper understanding of the issues faced by Native American women, expand the body of criminal justice policy-relevant research, and help formulate public policies and prevention strategies to decrease the incidence of violent crimes committed against Native women. Results are anticipated to help establish and enhance justice systems that will successfully restore victim safety and promote healing. Part of this program includes the National Baseline Study, which will provide comprehensive picture of American Indian and Alaska Native women's experiences with violence and victimization. Also, NIJ has a very active extramural and intramural program. For example, NIJ is engaged in research to answer pressing questions related to missing and murdered Indigenous people. NIJ's Missing and Unidentified Person System, or NAMUS, is providing some insight that will enhance our understanding of this issue and aid the system in system improvement and case resolution. Additionally, in an effort to provide first responders, medical and forensic providers, and prosecutors with the latest information and advances in forensics as it pertains to technology advances and best practices, NIJ staff has partnered with the Forensic Technology Center of Excellence and the department's National Advocacy Center to develop a new training system series specifically geared for rural and tribal enforcement. Among NIJ's most recent activities was the release of a solicitation on February 1st that seeks to build an increased capacity in conducting rigorous research and evaluation projects in Indian country and Alaskan Native villages through promotion of tribal engagement between researchers and tribal nations. The objective of this solicitation is to fund multiple capacity building grants, planning grants for projects involving federally recognized tribes or tribally based organizations. This research with tribal communities will ensure more equitable and mutually beneficial research partnerships. Moving forward, NIJ will continue to increase its emphasis on tribal crime and justice research in areas such as court-based interventions, effective alternatives to incarceration, capacity and strategies to implement enhanced sentencing authority, re-entry in Indian country, effective tribal law enforcement practices, effective practices for tribal courts, enhanced sentencing provisions, and attaining valid estimates of crime, violence, and victimization in Indian country and Alaska villages. Thank you.
So this is Betsy Griffith and Tracy Toulouse, and we're going to be moving into our question and answer period. Give us just a moment, please. We're going to start pulling together questions, and so I'm going to turn it over to Richard Love just to, again, explain, if you have a question, what you should be doing at this time.
Thank you. Currently, we have some questions here that some of our attendees have asked, and let's start with this first question here. Previously, it appears that the set-aside was at a minimum of 7%, not the up to. Is there any way that they can ask for additional funds? Who would like to answer that from our panel?
I think it'd be nice if Mickey Atsat could weigh into that. She's probably the best.
Yeah, that's a good question. The language as it stands and as it was enacted is 7% in fiscal year 17, but the language says may be used. And so in effect, the language enacted in 17, I think, gives flexibility for the up to 7% in 17 as well. We did apply the 7% and used the entire 7% in fiscal year 17. And I think that up to 7% in the fiscal year 18 request was to provide some additional flexibility.
Great, thank you.
I think that's a good question, though. It's a good comment.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. Moving on to another question here. Previously, it was stated that 7% was the minimum. Who made the decision to choose and make it up to choose the 7% limit?
This is Tracy. I will jump into that. I think that's a number we've had for about 6 years now, and it was at the time we were talking to tribes and the grant funding agencies, and that was essentially what we thought was the largest percentage set aside we could get at that particular point in time. And, you know, we will obviously look at that as we move forward, and we're interested in providing as many funds as possible, but that was, it's a historic number, and at the time it was the largest percentage set aside we thought was available.
Thank you, Tracy. Another question here. How is a DOJ responding to the new law regarding Indian Employment Training and Related Services Act? And are these programs that Mr. Antal mentioned, are they going to be programs that are going to be included in the new act that are identified by the AG and DOI? Who would like to take that?
Could you, I'm sorry, could you read that question again?
Sure. How is DOJ responding on the new law regarding the Indian Employment Training and Related Services Act? And are these programs, and I believe that it was Jim Antal that talked about that, are they going to be included in the new act that were identified by the AG and DOI?
I think that's a good question for the consultation as we move forward. We appreciate the question at this point in time. Something we'll look at and talk about internally. The Training Act has a fairly limited window of activities, and we would need to get together and decide what of those activities would be applicable to DOJ programs. So it's a good question for the consultation coming up, and we note it.
Thank you. Moving into another question here. Are they limited to the 7%? And how is that going to affect the COPS program?
Mickey, could you start out, and maybe we will have Matt, if necessary, finish up.
Sure. The fiscal year 17 funds that were enacted the 7% set aside did include the COPS program, as you saw, I think, on one of my slides. The fiscal year 18 President's budget request, though, included funding for the Tribal Resources Grant Program as a separate line item. So that was the 18 request. The 18 marks included the COPS funding again as part of the set aside, and I think that Matt said it's about 16 million, I think, for both House and Senate mark. So that would be the approximate amount that we would spend on COPS programs. But as we know, as Emily talked about and others have mentioned, the funds are flexible, so they wouldn't necessarily, the funding for COPS programs and community policing activities generally, Purpose Area 1, wouldn't necessarily be limited to that particular amount. There's flexibility within the overall amount to increase or decrease that level.
Great. Matt, did you have anything to add to that?
No, I think that pretty much covers it. Other than that's the type of information and feedback we're looking for at the consultation session next week, I think.
Great.
Great, thank you. Appreciate that. Another question, how much flexibility does DOJ have within grant solicitations? And just for an example, the ability to allow construction cost 1 year and explain allowable expenses the following year to include the purchase of modular facilities, et cetera, et cetera.
This is Betsy Griffith from BJA, and that I think relates to our Purpose Area 4 program. Historically, BJA made a policy call a couple of years ago because we did not have sufficient funding to fully fund new construction, that we would not do new construction. But I think we're utilizing the consultation process, in fact, to seek input for future planning now that we do have additional resources and flexibility. So this is really our chance to hear from you.
Thank you, Betsy. Then moving on to, I think this relates to the COPS program also, that some of the tribes do not know where or who to call regarding these programs, or who's going to be paying for, let's say, a missing person or a murder case regarding a child or an adult. What do you suggest they do?
Matt, do you want to to jump in. It sounds like it's a pretty specific question, so maybe if we could provide a contact, but go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, certainly I can be a contact for anything related to the COPS office. My email is Matthew, MATTHEW, .Lysakowski, LYSAKOWSKI @USDOJ.gov. And if questions are related to any of the CTAS purpose areas, you're also welcome to view the justice.gov/tribal website. And there is a response center for questions around the CTAS solicitation that is out. And when they receive calls, if it's around a specific purpose area, they have a contact list. They can forward any specific purpose area questions to those contacts within all of our offices.
And Matt, this is Jim Antel from OJJDP. I think the question also had to do with missing children and who to call. So I would just add that the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children is the national resource to call, and anyone should call 1-800-THE-LOST, 1-800-843-5678.
Yeah, and if I could jump in, I think Jim's advice on who to call on the missing children is important, but I want to take that as an opportunity to distinguish what it is we do, which are grant programs that would go directly to the tribes to administer programs locally. We don't provide those direct services like a number to call if there's a missing child or, you know, a specific case investigation. Those are things that BIA would generally provide. But again, we're happy to talk to people at the consultation more about that.
And if folks do have particular questions on programs where they need a contact, feel free to just, make those requests in the question and answer section, and we would be more than happy to follow up with you all as well with more information.
Thank you so much. We have another question here. What are some of the methods that you may propose other than competitive grant processes? Are there any?
So I think, that's what we have done in the past. I think that, we'd be interested in discussing other processes such as formulas, things of that sort. I think there are issues with all those, and all of us, both federal partners and tribal partners have dealt with different processes for making funds available. We really look forward to hearing what you've seen that's worked and that we can do differently. I mean, obviously we're familiar with competitive grants. We've heard competitive grants don't work. We want to learn from you and hear what you think might work better on those funds.
Thank you. We have another question here. When it comes to the trafficking problem, who should they be reaching out to obtain information or request assistance when it comes to this?
I think that's one of those questions, as Betsy said. Go ahead and contact us directly with your questions in the question section, because that sounds like it may be a request about specific trafficking issues, which may, I'm not, I think this is something we need to discuss privately, but may involve an allegation of trafficking, which would be a law enforcement issue, and we'd want to refer that appropriately to investigative resources. So happy to talk more about that and drill down on with whoever the questioner was. That feels like a conversation we should be having, not in an open forum.
Thank you very much. And there's a couple other questions from the same persons. If this person would please contact one of the presenters here, they'd be more than happy to answer any of your questions that you have proposed here that may not be appropriate right now for an open forum discussion. I'm looking at the question box and I don't see any other questions. I would like to ask any of our presenters if there are anything, is there anything that you would like to add at this time?
I think, we really appreciate everybody who's been on, and as I'm talking, hoping that additional questions will come in because we still have some time. But I know as people sort through this information, you'll have thoughts and questions. We're happy to entertain those in advance. We're also happy to talk about the issues at the consultation, and hopefully this will make a more productive consultation having this discussion with you. Did any questions come in while I was monologuing?
I am looking at that right now. I did not see any new questions come in, so.
I have nothing else, but if anybody else who's been involved in the presentation has anything to add, now would be the time to do that.
Does any of our other presenters have anything that they would like to add?
Okay. Well, thank you all again for participating. We look forward to additional feedback as we go forward, and we're looking forward to the first consultation at NCAI on the 15th here in DC.
And we've shared a slide with you just with the summary information. The consultation is going to be next Thursday, the 15th of February, 9:30 to 12:30 a.m. to p.m. at the NCAI meeting here in Washington, D.C. We have again provided the link to registration. If you are planning to attend, we ask that you please register at the link that's provided on the slide. And just so everybody knows, we will be posting the slides as well as a audio version for the near future of this webinar up on the same Tribal Justice Safety page that we have on the DOJ website, so that all of this information will be available to you after the fact. And at some point, we'll also provide a recording that will take a little bit longer. The other thing I wanted to do was to encourage you again, if you have an opportunity, both to participate in our consultation as well as to provide written comments. Again, the link is available up on the DOJ Tribal Justice Safety website at around the same location as the link that we've provided to you today. And the comments we will leave it open for comments for 30 days after our February consultation. Thanks very much for taking time today. We really appreciate the opportunity to answer your questions and look forward to hearing your feedback next week.
Thank you so much. And for all our attendees here, who are the most important people, we serve you. We would like to thank you for taking the time to attend this webinar today. I would also like to thank our presenters for an excellent job, and for all our panelists from the Department of Justice who assisted here today with questions and worked in the background. With that, with no more questions, the webinar is concluded.